Segment 3, Twitter to freedom. One of the principal figures in the Egyptian revolution was a young Google an Egyptian, but he had trained in this country and made a lot of money. He's a working Google executive. Protesters throughout the Arab world have been in touch on Twitter. They're keeping in touch by email. They're posting events on YouTube. Is what has taken place conceivable without the high-tech? Is the political revolution we're witnessing now conceivable absent the high-tech revolution of the last decade and a half or so, the communications revolution?
I don't think so, but I think we're seeing the veneer of the revolution. I think that the radical Islamicists know about social networking and electronic information, and so does the westernized upper and smaller middle class, and they galvanize people. But to the degree that somebody who's a peasant farmer in a village on the Nile is getting up every morning and looking at Twitter, I'm dubious that that's happening. So what I'm suggesting is that they caused the initial revolt. They got rid of Mubarak, and now the social networking may or may not be effective. What's going to capture the majority are people listening in the mosque, people turning on state-run television, people getting a little bit more mundane messages who don't participate. It's almost everybody in Washington and New York and at Harvard, Yale, they do Twitter and Facebook, but people out right in Fresno or out working in a factory, they're not Twittering every day.
Peter?
The way I put it is that the rise of the internet, email, social networking is very much a double-edged sword. In this country, the great beneficiary in the 2008 election was the Obama campaign, which expertly used social networking. In the last 2 years, the real beneficiary of the new technology has been the Tea Party movement. It's neutral, it's a double-edged sword, and just as Victor says, the Muslim Brotherhood, the forces of radical Islam, they not only know how to use them, they are using them very effectively even as we speak.
We have no margin of error, it's just an accelerator, a catalyst. So all these movements may have happened, but they're happening at lightning speed now.
Peter, question. We know that one of the aims of at least some branches of the radical Islamic movement is a restoration of the caliphate. All right, what are they talking about? They're talking about something like a predecessor to, but something like, well, you can glimpse it most recently in 1918, the day before the fall of the Ottoman Empire. And what you see when you look at a map is all kinds of places that we now think of as nations simply didn't exist. Iraq wasn't there. There was no border. Lebanon wasn't there. Israel wasn't there. Egypt wasn't. It was an undistinguished region. All right. So the question here is, does the new communications technology tend to play into this dream of a restoration, of somehow transcending or eliminating the nation state, which is an artifact of the 20th century, and play into the dream of a pan-Arab movement?
For sure. Just as Western progressive liberal internationalists are delighted by the rise of the internet because they think it helps lay the foundations for a one-state world and global governance, and there's some reason for that.
It does tend to act as a solvent of the nation state.
And by the way, just as Marx thought, as said in the Communist Manifesto, that the rise of telegraph helped lay the foundations for universal revolution of the proletariat, so too the radical Islamists certainly use this technology in the hope that it is laying the foundation for by the way, the caliphate, we can be even more precise. The caliphate means a single government under Islam, under all territories that have previously been held by Islam. In other words, stretching from Spain in the west to somewhere beyond Iran in the east. One government, and it's a Muslim government. That is what the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt is committed to.
Victor, let me. New York Times in February, quote, "Officials responded with a mass show of force across China after anonymous calls for protesters to stage a Chinese Jasmine revolution went out over social media and microblogging outlets. The words Jasmine revolution, borrowed from the successful Tunisian revolt, were blocked on sites similar to Twitter and internet search engines. In recent days, more than a dozen lawyers and rights activists have been rounded up, and more than 80 dissidents have reportedly been placed under varying forms of house arrest," close quote. Why do all three of us know that the Chinese won't let it happen?
because they're willing to use a level of coercion that essentially says to the West, we don't really care what you say, you have no influence over us, and if I could be blunt, you're borrowing $1 trillion for health care when 400 million of us have never seen a Western doctor, so don't give us any lectures because you have no influence over us. I would say, though, that on your interest about the caliphate, I don't see a monolithic Muslim nation appearing, because it's no more monolithic than the EU, and the EU is shattering as we speak. And the idea that Canada and the United States and Britain are going to have an Anglosphere again is ridiculous. There's so many fissures within the Arab world, Shia, Sunni, Alawite, tribal, geographical, economic systems. And remember, for all of the PC anti-Americanism, Saddam Hussein and Khomeini, and throw in Hafez al-Assad and Libya, have killed more of their own people than we did in Iraq and the first Gulf War, trying to liberate them.
Yes, sure.
If I may say so, I think that Victor is right. The likelihood of a caliphate emerging is extremely remote. However, it is a real aspiration of lots of people and lots of leaders, and it's reasonable to worry that there will be a great deal of death and destruction as these people unsuccessfully seek to bring about a caliphate.